Good evening, everybody. Hi. For those of you who are out in the hall, I encourage you to come in. We're about to start the evening's presentation. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Councilmember Evan Glass, and it really warms my heart just to see all of you here tonight, because we know that we are all here because Montgomery County and the state of Maryland is a loving and compassionate community, and that we know we value our diversity, and that we're all here because we want to help. Ultimately, that is why every single one of us are here in this room or watching on Facebook or streaming media, because we want to make lives better for as many people as we can, and we're specifically here tonight because we want to make lives better for the refugees who are fleeing the Taliban in Afghanistan. And for those who have gotten out of Afghanistan, who have braved the harrowing images that we have seen, those who've been at the airport trying to grab onto planes as they've taken off at the Kabul airport, those who are still waiting to find a better home either here or some other country in this world, we know that they're waiting to escape and they're trying to make their lives better. And we welcome them with open arms here in Montgomery County in the state of Maryland. And we welcome our new neighbors, and that is why we are all here. And I thank you all for your kindness, love, and generosity for being here. To open our program, I would like to invite Hamudila to lead us in a prayer in his native Pashto. Hamudila is a religious leader and a special immigrant visa refugee from Afghanistan. He's struggling ever since he got here in the United States. And he's with us tonight because he's taken a break from his job delivering food from Grubhub to be with us tonight. That's how much this community means to him, and that's how much you all mean to him. And so we will open up with Hamudila's voice because it is so important to hear from him and to hear from those whose lived experiences are most impacted by the events that are currently underway. Hamudila.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ويوم يناديهم فيقول أين شركائي الذين كنتم تزعمون ونزعنا من كل أمة شهيدا فقلنا هاتوا برهانكم فعلموا أن الحق لله وضل عنهم ما كانوا يفترون إن قارون كان من قوم موسى فبغى عليهم وآتيناه من الكنوز ما إن مفاتحه لتنوء بالعصبة أولي القوة إذ قال له قومه لا تفرح إن الله لا يحب الفرحين صدق الله العظيم. By your permission, Now I want to recite a small part of the Quran and translate it to you. Allah says, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. Help one another in righteousness and warding off evil, but do not help one another to commit sin and transgression. And in the other place says Allah, يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. Oh people, we created you all from a single man and a single woman and made you into races and tribes, so that you should know that you should recognize one another. In God's eyes, the most honored of you are the ones most mindful of Him. God is all knowing, all aware. Now, I want to say something about my stories, refugee stories, that when and how to come here. And one of my brothers will help me to translate what I'm saying here in front of you. ما په افغانستان کې د ناټو قواو سره چې د دې په رأس کې د امریکې د متحده ایالاتو غړي شامل ول په ساختماني چارو کې په دنده بوخت وم.
In Afghanistan, I was working with NATO, who was leading, the US was leading them, and reconstructions in Afghanistan.
له 2011 کال څخه تر د 2013 کال تر وروستیو شیبو پورې له دوی سره موږ د وطن د آبادۍ په برخه کې او د وطن د امنیت او د تعلیم په برخه کې او د اقتصاد د پیاوړتیا په برخه کې دوی سره اوږه په اوږه هلته تر 2013 کال پورې کار وکړ.
From 2011 until late 2018, I worked shoulder to shoulder with my brothers for reconstructions, education, and economics of Afghanistan. We worked with the U.S. Army forces to build Afghanistan.
په دې وروستیو کې چې کله په افغانستان کې وضعیت د امنیتي وضعیت ډیر خراب سو او د ما ژوند او زما د کورنۍ ژوند ته خطر متوجه و، نور مو نشو کولی چې هلته خپله دنده ترسره کړو د ناامنۍ له وجې نه، نو مجبور شولو چې دغه یو امتیاز چې د ایسایوي پروسه وه نو دې ته خپل اسناد ورکړله.
Recently, that the situation got worsened in Afghanistan, we were not able to do our jobs safely. Therefore, I was eligible to get the SIVs and applied for SIV.
نو دغه اسناد د ایسایوي د پروسې د واجد د شرایط کېدو په خاطر باندې موږ ته هغه د موږ سیواران امریکایي سیوار چې موږ درلوده هغې موږ ته دغه اسناد تهیه کړل او هغې په دې باندې پوهېدل چې د موږ ژوند ته دلته خطر ده، ځکه د موږ د دغه اسنادو مستحق وبولو، دغه اسناد یې موږ ته راکړل.
My supervisor or COR recognized that I am eligible for the SIV program. Therefore, he provided me all the documents I needed to apply for the SIV program.
نو بناء دغه همکاري چې د امریکې متحده ایالاتو په افغانستان کې د امنیت او د صحي بخش او د اقتصاد او د افغانستان د بیا رغونې په پار کې کړي دي، موږ له ټولو څخه منندوی یو او همدارنګه هغه سوپروایزر د موږ چې موږ ته دغه اسناد راکړي دي چې بالاخره موږ تر امریکې پورې راغللو، موږ قدردانۍ او مننه کوو له دې څخه.
I'm really grateful, and I thank my supervisor in the United States that they helped us in Afghanistan to build our country, build our economic and our education. And I'm grateful, especially from my supervisor, that he provided me the documents to apply for the SIV program.
په آخره کې لدی ټولو څخه مننه کوو او لدی څخه هیله لرو چې دغه مرستې د موږ نور هغه ورونه چې ژوند په خطر کې ده هغې سره هم وکړي او تیوې نه سپموي. موږ د دې قدردانۍ کوو او د دې په اصطلاح له ملاتړ په اساس باندې موږ دلته اوس یو هوسا ژوند لرو، خوشحاله یو، ارامه یو، د هیڅ خطر موږ سره نشته.
At the end, I want to say, please continue the support. And those who are left behind in Afghanistan, please provide the support to them and continue to bring them here. Right now, because of the help of the United States, we have a peaceful life here in the United States. And I ask to continue the support for those who are left behind. And I'm really grateful for all you have been doing.
تاسو ټول نه هم دلته مننه کوو، یو جهان مننه چې توجه مو وکړه او وخت مو راکړ.
Thank you so much for coming tonight here. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Hamuddin, for your prayer, which translates into so many of our own religions, into so many other languages, one of love and compassion. And thank you for sharing your story about our community. You are welcome here. I know it is not easy for you, but we are all here together collectively as a community to support you and to support those who come after you. We know that in this global crisis, coming together is more important now than ever. And this weekend marks the 20th anniversary of two planes taking down the World Trade Center, one flying into the Pentagon, and a fourth crashing into a Pennsylvania forest. Montgomery County will have a ceremony tomorrow at the Rockville Courthouse at 11 a.m. to remember those that we lost on 9/11. But this weekend also signifies the 20 years since the start of the global war on terrorism. And I would like to take a minute to recognize the 24 service members from Montgomery County who we lost during the past 2 decades of conflict, trying to leave Afghanistan and their Gold Star families. So please join me in a moment of silence. In a moment, you will see the names and the faces of those 24 individuals who we lost, Montgomery County's own. And while you see those names and faces, we will hear the national anthem sung by MCPS student Mackenzie Taylor. Mackenzie.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you very much, Mackenzie. That was absolutely beautiful. Your voice, you, and thank you for being here this evening, and thank you to those who fought for all of us, fought for the Afghan people, and fought for our safety. And at this moment, I know that politics can be divisive. All you have to do is go on social media, watch the TV, or just breathe air, quite frankly. But there should be some things that we as Americans can agree upon. We should be able to agree that America is the melting pot and should remain the global melting pot. We should agree that diversity is our strength. And we should also agree that America is the land of the free and the home of the brave. And with that, I would like to introduce Maryland State Senator Will Smith. And I am not only proud to call Senator Smith a friend, but I'm also proud to call him my state senator and be a constituent for him. But Senator Smith is also an intelligence officer in the United States Navy Reserves, where he is known not as Senator Smith, but as Lieutenant Commander Smith. And in March of 2019, Lieutenant Commander Smith deployed to Afghanistan in support of Operation Freedom Sentinel, serving in Kabul until October of 2019. And in Afghanistan, he served as the branch chief for the governance and the Afghan Naval Defense and Security Forces Division within the Combined Joint Intelligence Operations Center, Afghanistan. And serving in Afghanistan and serving all the residents of Montgomery County and the state of Maryland, Senator Smith has a unique voice and one that I would like to share with you. So Senator Smith, please join us.
Well, good evening, everyone. I was actually taken aback because one of the Lance Corporal that you saw up there, Julian Brennan, was actually a classmate of mine. We went to school together, went to preschool together, all the way up until high school. And I remember the day that he was killed in an improvised explosion in Afghanistan, and still very much keep in touch with his mom and his dad, and his sister and his brothers, and the nieces and nephews that he never got to meet. So I just want to recognize him and lift up all the 24 members that served and died in Afghanistan. First, I want to say thank you to the County Council for bringing us together tonight, and in particular, Councilmember Glass. I've known you for over a decade, and you've served in and out of government with class, distinction, intellect, and compassion. And so I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for bringing us together. This is just a testament to your continued commitment and work here in Montgomery County. Now, before I deployed to Afghanistan, one of the books I read in preparation was called The Internationalists. And it was a book by two Yale law professors, Una Hathaway and Scott Shapiro. And the central thesis of it was focusing on the Paris Peace Pact, otherwise known as the Kellogg-Briand Pact. Ringing a bell? No. And it's because no one ever studies it. Most people know about the Treaty of Versailles, they know about the Munich Agreement, but no one ever talks about the Paris Peace Pact. Now, it was signed by 62 countries in August of 1928, and it was a pact to make war illegal, the outlawry of war, and a novel and almost crazy concept. Since then, since it was signed, just 10 years after World War I, and after the creation of the League of Nations, which was the preceptor to the UN, the war reemerged, right? You don't have a PhD for me to tell you that after 1928, Just 3 years later, Japan invaded China. 4 years after that, Italy invaded Ethiopia. And 4 years after that, Germany invaded Poland and most of the rest of Europe. The death toll of World War II was 5 times that of World War I. 70 million people perished in World War II. And the Paris Peace Pact, it didn't stop the Korean War, it didn't stop the Arab-Israeli conflict, the Indo-Pakistan wars, the Vietnam War, the breakup of Yugoslavia, the genocide in Rwanda, the war on terror, the war in Afghanistan, conflicts in Syria and Iraq, and a number of other places. Indeed, as we are gathered here today, Syria is in the midst of a bloody civil war. The Kurds are fighting Turkey for their independence. Russia seized Crimea. The Islamic State has spread to Iraq, Syria, and Libya. Nigeria is still battling the terrorist group Boko Haram. And so it's obvious that the Paris Peace Pact didn't work in outlawing war, but since then, we have shifted toward a world in which conflicts are increasingly resolved through international institutions and organizations, by nonviolent means, like sanctions and through international institutions, saving millions of lives and making us all ultimately safer, which is where I think we're headed toward in Afghanistan. The international community must continue to step up in Afghanistan, as the solution in Afghanistan was never going to be a military one. Now, as you heard, my experience in Afghanistan was as the branch chief of the National Security Defense Force and governance, and I got to serve during a historical time there. It was only the 4th presidential election. Ashraf Ghani prevailed, and Abdullah was the CEO, or the vice president equivalent, in that election. And it was tortured with the Taliban, with anemic turnout and violence all throughout the country. But it was one great symbol of the emergence of democracy and a republic and a new Afghanistan. Now, if you look at the Afghan constitution, the former Afghan constitution, it was a radically inclusive and progressive document. Women and ethnic minorities were held on parity with each other. That was enshrined into the Constitution. We don't even have that in the United States. The closest we get to it is in our Declaration of Independence, where it says all men are created equal. Women served in Parliament. A third of Parliament was made up of women. Women served as professors. Women served as journalists. Women competed in the Olympics. And as I just mentioned, women served prominently in the Afghan Parliament. So a lot of progress was made throughout those 34 provinces and amongst those 38 people, 14 major ethnicities, countless tribal communities, urban-suburban divide. A lot of progress was made over the 20 years that we were in Afghanistan. And that progress came at a hefty toll. It cost tens of thousands of Afghans their lives, and more than 3,500 American and coalition service members died in the conflict. The last 13 just last month. In the month that I left Afghanistan, the first soldier that was not born on September 11, 2001, touched down in Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan, right outside of Kabul. Wasn't alive on September 11th. So the mission there, right? The Taliban has an old saying that you have the watches, but we have the time, right? Our mission was a counterterrorism mission. It was never a counterinsurgency or a nation-building mission. But then, what then do we do with all the progress that we made, that I just talked about? The Constitution, the enfranchisement of ethnic minorities and women. What do we do? Well, the answer is that there's simply no answer there. If you look at Afghanistan, the disparate communities, the ethnicity, the diversity, look at the president of Afghanistan, or the former president of Afghanistan, Ashraf Ghani. Spent a lot of time, he was educated in the University of Kabul, spent a lot of time in the West, in the UK. He received his master's degree and his PhD at Columbia University up in New York. Did you know that he lived in Baltimore? He taught at Johns Hopkins for 10 years. His kids went to school in Baltimore. He lived in Baltimore for 10 years. His daughter still lives in New York City. And when he came back, although he was an Afghan, he had no natural base. So why am I telling you all this? No natural political base, what we would think of as a political base. I'm telling you all this is because that when you think about it in retrospect, overlaying a republic, a democratic republic in Afghanistan was never going to work without prolonged, sustained NATO support or United States support, military support, frankly. It just wasn't going to happen. So I'll end with this. I am an internationalist. And I don't think we can extricate ourselves from the international community. That's why I think international institutions like the EU, NATO, the UN are fundamental and instrumental for continued peace throughout the world. And I think that's where we need to recommit ourselves in Afghanistan. Now, we have a commander-in-chief that is not going to redeploy troops in Afghanistan. It's not going to be our policy. I have a translator and friends that worked in the embassy and on our base that are stuck there. I've been WhatsApping them. We've been trying to work them out, work with the members of Congress, with the State Department, even today. I just talked to a neighbor of mine that's doing the same thing. You'll hear from her later tonight. So while the history and while the future of Afghanistan is uncertain, one thing is not uncertain, and that is the dedication, the tenacity, the love, the respect, the warmth that so many Afghan patriots showed our American forces while we were there. And what is not unclear is what we must do to ensure that we can get as many of them back here or to wherever they need to go to safety, and we never forget the folks that helped us and kept us safe while we were over there accomplishing our mission. So with that, I just want to say again, thank you, Evan. Thank you, all of you, for supporting this effort. I'm going to do what I can in the next weeks and months and years to ensure that we support our Afghan brothers and sisters, and I hope you all do the same. So at the end of this, I just say thank you so much for being here tonight, and I look forward to our work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Smith, for your service in Afghanistan, your service here in District 20, and your service to the state of Maryland as well, as in addition to the history lesson of how we got into this situation, and more importantly, how we're going to fix this situation here at home for those who want to come here and who we want to protect. And in addition to Senator Smith, there are a number of other elected officials who are here, but I want to start by inviting my colleagues on the County Council to make some brief remarks. I see Council Vice President Gabe Albornoz is here. In addition, I see Councilmember Hans Riemer and Will Jawanda. So Vice President Albornoz.
First, Evan, thank you for coordinating this important and beautiful event. It's so important for us to come together as a community and as a country right now, because there is so much that divides us. About a month ago, I had the opportunity to take my family to New York City. It was the first time my kids had been to New York City. And we visited the hallowed grounds of 9/11, where the Twin Towers fell. But my favorite part of the visit was going to Ellis Island. And we spent the extended tour visit there, and my kids did a great job staying engaged and following the stories. They were mesmerized by the pictures. We looked up my wife's ancestry and identified exactly when her grandmother had crossed and visited through those hallowed grounds as well. But what struck me as I went through the tour was not how much has changed, but how much has stayed the same. We, as a country, share values that are why generations of people have come here fleeing all sorts of persecution and violence that in some cases are simply unimaginable. And I'm so proud to live in a community that has such a core value of beliefs, as so articulately stated by my colleague and friend, Councilmember Glass, where we honestly acknowledge that we truly, truly believe that our diversity is our strength. And the way that we open up our arms and serve those among us that need such help and a helping hand is beautiful. And so I want to acknowledge, first, our faith community, who has come together in a magnificent fashion, as they have so many times before, across all faiths, to welcome these refugees with open arms. But I especially want to thank our nonprofit organizations. I see my friend Chris here from Lutheran Relief Services, who has been working day and night over the last month, probably not sleeping, doing everything unimaginable to get every last person out of Afghanistan. And now that we've entered into this new phase of this horrible chapter in our history, we once again must step up and step forward. And I think we're going to, as a government, as a community, and as a nonprofit sector, and as a faith sector as well. So To all of our friends who are here, welcome. Welcome to our community. We are blessed to have you here, and we look forward to supporting you in everything that you do. Thank you all so much.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Hans Remer, and I'm one of the 4 at-large council members. Thank you, Councilmember Glass, for bringing us together tonight. I just want to make 2 points. The first, I am so upset, as I know you are, by how right-wing voices have turned against bringing to America the Afghan refugees who have supported this mission for decades. It is offensive. These are people who risk their lives, who have put everything on the line for the values that Senator Smith talked about. You know, the elevation of women and ethnic minorities, the establishment of democracy. And sadly, that mission has not gone well. They deserve a home in this country if they need one, and we know they need one. And we are here tonight to say, we welcome you in Montgomery County, we welcome you in Maryland, and this country needs to stand up and fight for those who have fought for us. The second point I'd like to make, we have to acknowledge in this county, you may have seen the fact that Montgomery County was not designated as a place that would receive many refugees because of the cost of housing. That is a decades-long problem that we have made ourselves. The cost of housing is high because we have decided we don't want to have more housing over time. And as a result, we're here today, not among those several dozen jurisdictions designated as places that will be, the example leading light communities to welcome the refugees. We are welcoming refugees, and I also want to thank the nonprofits that are doing that work, and we're all going to find out how we can do more. But our other policies fulfill our aspiration, and our housing policy supporting more housing supports our aspiration to be a welcoming and inclusive community. So thank you, Councilmember Glass, and all my colleagues, and everyone who's here tonight. Appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Remer, Vice President Albernaz, Councilmember Glass, my seatmate when we are sitting together, which has been a couple of years with the pandemic. Just a reminder of that we are dealing with this latest crisis in the midst of continued crisis, the COVID crisis and the economic fallout and the racial and social justice crisis that we continue to go through in this country. And just thank you. I'm glad Chris was mentioned, and I see Ann Durst here from St. John's Norwood and so many others. I'm going to get in trouble, start calling people out, but who have stepped up over the last year and a half to support our neighbors here, and without any rest are stepping up again to support our neighbors coming from overseas. I often think about when we talk about resettlement and refugees, my dad came to this country in 1970 fleeing the Biafran Civil War. And thank God for a just and welcoming America that allowed him to come here to this country on a scholarship to study, to have housing, to provide for his basic needs. And he was able to have that all 4 years, to meet a great woman, create an okay son. And I'm here today because of a welcoming and generous America, and that is the story of America. Multiply that times, you heard Ellis Island. Everyone in this room, you go back far enough, is going to have some story that connects to someone coming here, fleeing religious persecution, seeking economic opportunity, fleeing violence in a war-torn country. And that is what America does best when it's doing what it should and held to its founding ideals. I was heartened to see that despite the right-wing media that was mentioned, 7 in 10 Americans do support the resettlement of Afghan refugees, Republicans and Democrats alike. But real challenges remain of how we're going to get them here and allow them to afford housing. I'm glad Councilmember Remer brought this up. You have 2 ways to come here. If you were fighting side by side, you get a $1,200 stipend, but if you were a humanitarian refugee, you don't get that same federal support. And even if you get the $1,200, I don't know where you're living with $1,200 to go towards rent. If you look at the list of countries where it was quote unquote affordable, the 19, Austin, Texas being one. Average rent over $1,500 there, up $300 in the last 2 years. This is a problem across the country. And one of the things I hope that we can work on with Councilmember Glass and my colleagues is what can we do at the state and local level. I'm really glad Governor Hogan stepped up and said, we want to welcome people. All right, let's step up and provide some assistance so that folks can live here. We know that refugees and immigrants thrive when they can locate in places where there's access to diverse communities, where they have support systems and family. So we need to, as a country, we need to pass that federal package that the president requested, but we need to see what we can do here at the state and locally to receive some of these 100,000 refugees who are imminently coming and some who have arrived. So I pledge to you to work with my colleagues at the state level and on the council to see if there's anything we can do. It's nice to say we're welcoming, and we are. We have 4 of the 10 top most diverse cities in the country here. This is a great place. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else in the world. But let's really step up and do what we can to help folks resettle. So thank you, Councilmember Glass. Thank you all for coming, and really appreciate you and look forward to working on this with all of you here. Thank you.
So we are one short of a majority, but don't let that dissuade you that the council is unanimously supportive and united in this effort to make sure that we do find everybody homes and do make sure that we stay a welcoming and just and fair community that I know you all agree upon, not only on this issue, but on so many other issues. And so while my council colleagues were here, there are also a number of other elected officials and notables that are in the room that I would like to acknowledge. From the General Assembly, I would like to acknowledge Senator Jeff Wallstreicher, who is here over there. Thank you, Senator. We have a number of state delegates here. Delegate Laura Charkoudian, I see over here. Delegate Jared Solomon is in the back. Thank you, Delegate Solomon. The mayor of Tacoma Park, Kate Stewart, is here. Thank you. I also know that Congressman Raskin, his district director, Kathleen O'Connor, was here earlier, so thank you, Congressman Raskin. And I believe that Ron Washington for Congressman Trone's office might be here as well, or he's on his way. He's on 270. But also want to also acknowledge former United States Secretary of Labor, Tom Perez, is here as well. Child of immigrants. Thank you very much, Secretary Perez. And as many of you have probably noticed or noted, this event was put together quite quickly. We recognized what the urgency was. We saw what was coming off of cable news and on social media, and we knew that we needed to make our voices heard. And that's what this event really is about, twofold, making our voices heard, and in a few moments you will hear about how you can put your voice into action. But there is one individual in particular that I would like to thank, and that is former Maryland Delegate Saqib Ali, who was the first Muslim member of the General Assembly when he was elected in 2006. And to date, he is the only Muslim ever elected in Montgomery County. And Saqib has been an incredible leader in the Muslim community, and he is here to talk about his experiences and what we can also do moving forward. Thank you, Saqib.
Thank you, Councilman Glass. I salute you for holding this event and bringing us all together in support of the refugees. When we see those images on TV of people desperate in Afghanistan, fearful for their lives, climbing on airplanes, falling from the sky to their death, we've all seen those pictures, and they hurt our hearts so much, I know. But the Muslim community in Montgomery County, they feel that pain even stronger, even harder, because they feel a special kinship to the people of Afghanistan, to the sort of worldwide nation, nation of Muslims, or brotherhood, or however you want to say it, a kinship, a special kinship. And so, if you go through Montgomery County, there's so many mosques here, so many Muslim organizations. You will see that every single one of them from the very beginning of this crisis has been working double time, very, very hard to make sure to set up donations, to help assimilate the refugees who are coming, because these are our brothers and sisters. So I just want to make everyone aware there are mosques in this county, there are Muslim organizations. Even if you don't know where to donate or how to donate, you can just go to your nearest mosque or Muslim organization and give your clothes, give your money, give your time. If you have boarding or housing available, you can give that. And that's one place you can give. And of course, there's many others. There's Christian and there's Jewish organizations also. So I just want to say to our Afghan brethren, you are our brothers and sisters. You are one of us. And we hope that when you come to America, you are provided with the bounty of this land. And we hope that the new rulers of your country do not make the same mistakes they made before and are hopefully more merciful and kind to the people of Afghanistan. We hope only for the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Saki, for all of your help and leadership, and especially your help in helping organize tonight. And I want to take a minute or two to thank all the organizations that have helped make tonight's event possible. And more importantly, the organizations that have been doing this work on the front lines to make our refugees have a safe place once they get off the plane at Dulles Airport, here in Montgomery County, in the state of Maryland, and across the DC region. Whether it is picking people up at the airports and welcoming them, or setting up their housing, providing furnishing, collecting food, giving donations, financial contributions, all of these efforts are helping them start a brand new life here in Montgomery County. And we've had an incredible group of 18 organizations, faith-based and nonprofit, that helped sponsor tonight's event and get the word out. And I want to take a minute to thank each of these organizations, again, that have been on the ground, that are doing this work. Take a photo of these. Some of them are outside with tables, because these are the nonprofits that all of my colleagues and all of us know are on the front line, and without them, we wouldn't be able to do this. So I want to thank the Montgomery County Muslim Foundation, the Montgomery County Muslim Council, Lutheran Immigrant and Refugee Services, Immigration Rescue Committee, Communities United Against Hate, Lutheran Social Services of the National Capital Area, International Refugee Assistance Project, I Support the Girls, Church World Service, Jewish Community Relations Council, Jews United for Justice, CASA, Solutions and Hometown Connections, SEIU Local 500, Montgomery County Education Association, Progressive Maryland, Action in Montgomery, and CCI Health and Wellness Services. Now, if you are a staff member, a board member, a donor, or a volunteer for any of these organizations, please stand so that we can recognize and honor you. Thank you very much. And so now we're going to take that turn to learning what we can do from these very fine nonprofit and social service organizations. First is the Lutheran Social Services of the National Capital Area has been one of the lead organizers assisting Afghan refugees as they come to the DC region. And they've been hosting drives to collecting diapers and school supplies, things as little as toothpaste and toys for the little ones, and doing everything that we all know is necessary to create a new home here in our community. And it is my honor to introduce not only Montgomery County resident, but the president and CEO of Lutheran Immigrant and Refugee Services, Krish Mir Vignagraju. There we go, thank you. And Krish previously served in the Obama White House as the policy director for the First Lady Michelle Obama, and she came to her family here to Maryland fleeing the civil war in Afghanistan. So Krish, thank you for the work you're doing and for your personal story as well.
Thank you so much, Councilman Glass. And just want to clarify, so my family actually came from Sri Lanka, a different civil war. I also wanted to just thank Gabe, if he is still here, for explaining the bags under my eyes so that I didn't have to. In seriousness, obviously, so many of us were deeply affected by seeing those images of people so desperately fleeing that they were willing to try to fly to freedom on the wings of military planes. And obviously, so many of us were moved by the 24 servicemen that we were able to see their images. And I think so many of us are also moved to remember the people that they died for, because it isn't just those who were so desperate that they clung on to planes. It was also the women and girls who remain in Afghanistan. So while we should applaud the incredible military service and the evacuation of 124,000 Afghans, we have to remember that history will judge us not only by how many people we got out, but also by how many people remain. So I had the chance to go to Fort Lee a few weeks ago and to meet with families there. I remember meeting with a couple that had a young toddler and a baby. Just yesterday, I was in Fairfax, Virginia, meeting with about a dozen Afghan women who had come as humanitarian parolees, some of whom were journalists, some of whom were activists, some of whom were artists. Got to meet a couple who had a 14-month-old baby. And in them, I saw myself. And in them, I saw my family, because my family did flee a civil war and came to this country. And my parents came when I was 9 months old. They came with no jobs, just a couple $100s in their pockets and two very young kids in their arms. And whether they came in 1980 as we did, or 1970, as other people shared, each of us have our American story. And so we have this opportunity now, as Afghan families will enter our communities and write their own American story, to help. I am so proud as a Montgomery County resident to say that Maryland, Virginia, DC is one of the 3 main areas that Afghan allies will come into. And I think for us it's so exciting because they come for a reason. They come because of Maryland's diversity, which is our strength. They come because you are the welcoming communities that welcome them into our homes, into our neighborhoods. And I think for us, I am lucky because I get to, kind of work on the front lines. But we all know how resilient they are, how industrious these individuals are, how they become engineers and electricians, doctors and teachers and others who are on the front lines. And I think for me, it's so important for us to highlight, because it's true. We hear the rhetoric out there. We hear about this invasion of Afghans. We hear about the Taliban terrorists. No. These are people who served as interpreters and translators, as we heard. They worked alongside U.S. troops. They worked on the embassy compound. We know who they are. They were vulnerable gender activists who risked everything to advance American ideals. And finally, they are coming to this country, and we have the opportunity to give them a hero's welcome. So Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service, we are an 82-year-old organization. I'm told that I hide our age well. We're headquartered in Baltimore. We've resettled nearly 10,000 refugees since the Afghan program began in 2009. We have our work cut out for us, because in some ways, while we have seen an uptick in terms of the walk-ins to our offices in Baltimore and Hyattsville and other parts of Maryland, Virginia, this is in some ways the calm before the storm, and we need your help. So we've had about 45,000 volunteers all across the country, about 10,000, actually probably think it's 12,000 in this region itself, who have stepped up and asked how to help. But we need a lot of support. So everything from donations, we launched a donation drive, and we're looking for churches, mosques, community organizations to help. We have towers of diapers that are at our office. But as was described, these humanitarian parolees, they were different from SIVs in the sense that they only have 90 days of support right now. So essentially what we're creating is a parallel system to what is a federal program. These people would have come in if we had met our legal mandate, which was to process their visas in 9 months. Instead, so many were waiting a decade or longer. I talked in the last several months about a couple examples, an interpreter who waited 12 years who, 3 of his family members had been gunned down by the Taliban. He was stopped at a Taliban checkpoint and shot and killed in front of his 3 sons. This is our responsibility because we gave them our word. And for us to make sure that word matters, that it means something, we've got to do our part. And so in these next few months, few years, we need your help in terms of if you have a housing that you might be able to donate, if you have a couple rooms in your house that you might be able to take someone in, if you have a laptop, SIM cards, if you know a restaurant that is able to donate halal meat, if you're willing to donate some time. We need drivers to pick these individuals and families up at the airport. We need to find them affordable housing. We need to furnish it with modest furniture. We even stock the refrigerator with culturally familiar foods. We need mentors in terms of English as a second language. We need drivers who can get them to medical appointments. For many of them, they don't have medical services. And until we advocate and get Congress to act, we're not sure if those are going to be covered. My kind of ultimate point I'll end with this is an all hands on deck effort, and we need your help. Because this is a moment. In the last couple weeks, I have done everything from Glenn Beck to Joy Reid. I have never seen the kind of support that we have right now. But this is us writing the history book that our grandchildren will read. And if we succeed, history will never forget us. But if we fail, history will never forgive us. We have the opportunity to welcome them as our brothers and sisters and neighbors and hopefully extended family. And I know that ultimately we accept these Afghan allies not because they're Americans, but because we are. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Krish, for sharing what your organization is doing. You do look fabulous for 83. And the other aspect, the other thing that I took away from what you said is that this is our responsibility because we gave them our word. And tonight, we are putting words into action. That's what this is all about. So thank you very much for you and your organization. Next person I'd like to introduce is Saba Rashid. And she wears many hats, none this evening though. And she is a large voice in our Muslim community here. And she's currently president of the Montgomery County Muslim Foundation. And through that position, in addition to her position as an attorney, doing pro bono work in Washington, D.C., Saba is an active philanthropist. And we are so lucky to have her here in Montgomery County. Saba.
Thank you, Councilmember Evan Glass, for organizing this event, a much, much needed event for us and for community at this particular time. I would like to first give you a brief overview of our organization, where it is and how it began, just before going into what we are doing. Montgomery County Muslim Foundation is established a nonprofit, and its vision is to have a hate-free and a hunger-free society. It works day and night to its sole mission is to help the needy, irrespective of any race, color, or religion, anything. We work with a number of partners, number of religions, so it's working for all the community. In 2003, how it all began was a group of Muslims under the leadership of Mr. Tufail Ahmed, who unfortunately cannot join us today, formed Montgomery County Muslim Council, which had a broader mandate that did charitable work and non-charitable work. And the charitable work quickly expanded. In 2008, county executive, most of you probably know, Ike Leggett, advised our then chairman to set up a nonprofit. So they're eligible for grants and things like that. Thus, MCMF came into being and it was formed. So where we are today? We now operate a monthly food pantry and drive-through distributions. We give fresh meat distribution program. We run a Feed the Homeless program. We have Thanksgiving and Christmas basket distribution, and we are proud that Councilmember Evan Glass joined us in one of them also. And we have free youth coding classes, SAT, programs for the needy kids. We have a youth scholarship program. Unfortunately, after the George Floyd incident, we established an African-American scholarship program for the needy also, so for vocational training programs in Montgomery College. In the area of clothing, we run yearly winter drives, coat drive, blanket drive, and have a very robust women empowerment program that trains and educates women to enable women to get jobs or set up their own businesses and things like whatever they want to do. One of our significant program is our refugee rehabilitation program that has provided support to Somali, Iraqi, Syrian, and Afghani families for many years now. Under this program, MCMF has served 54,000 pounds of non-perishable fresh produce and approximately 18,000 pounds of fresh meat to refugee families since 2019. So we have been in this field for some time. We donated 38 refurbished cars to the families, delivered truckloads of clothes on summer and winter months, conducted employment and training programs, sewing classes for women, provided them with sewing machines to sew masks and during the COVID, and then supported the hospitals and sent them out to hospitals and area nonprofits. All this has been funded by our community, our Muslim community, who have very generously donated and raised funds to support our refugee program. Coming to the current crisis, it is a very bad situation as we are dealing with it every day. And as you heard from our Lutheran Church representative, that things are very, very bad, and it will take time before it really gets settled and worked out. We are expanding our refugee rehabilitation program in partnership with a number of refugee agencies, which includes Lutheran also, IRC, ECDC, and other nonprofits. Currently we're sending food boxes to the new families. So any nonprofit who calls up, so many boxes are needed, we just ship them off. So we have volunteers delivering them, so they're there. We are arranging a clothing distribution because when they're coming, they don't even have suitcases. So we are trying to arrange a whole clothing drive so their clothes can be taken to the location where people can pick and choose whatever they want. We are developing a database of skills to help the refugees to locate jobs in Montgomery County also, because we want to attract them to Montgomery County. So we want them here. The Bay Area has the best type of schools and living, so we do want to help them as much as we can settle in Montgomery County. We are developing a network of volunteers to mentor them, the refugee family, including launch and adopt a family program that will help each family and mentor each family in whatever way. So whatever nonprofits like Lutheran or ECDC, RC, we can provide them the support that they need to move forward, because we are there, we understand their language, we understand that culture, we understand that we are from that region, so we can understand and coordinate with them and help the county integrate them into the U.S. system. We are conducting a sewing machine drive, school drive, supplies drive, car seats drive for the refugee families, and also set up a fund in which we can just donate, which is on our website, and so that we can cater to the diverse needs of the people. Our greatest issue that we are confronting at this point, and I would like to request the county, is the housing issue. And really, agencies are calling us up and saying, is there anyone in Montgomery County or where that we need some apartment homes, so really to accommodate them. And so we do need that. We need jobs, and we'll need job training and certification programs, rental assistance. So the demand is going to be great. So we would like to request the county to support MCMF, as we are really operating on a very shoestring budget. We are only raising funds from our community. So we do want support of the county, and we do want, county and, the nonprofits to work together and see what we can do. I would, again, like to thank Councilmember Glass and urge all of you to, open your hearts and homes and everyone to donate generously. I believe it is our moral obligation that to help the Afghan refugees. They have stood by us and our troops and supported us. And as we promised them, and risk their lives for us. And now it is our moral duty to really stand by them, support them, and help them in this greatest need of their hour. Okay. So thank you so much, Congressman, Councilmember.
Thank you so much, Saba. And I look forward to going to another food drive. And if anyone is hankering to go to a food drive, please get in touch with Saba. They do a September 12th. There we go, this weekend. And while the conversation tonight has been largely of a global nature, we know that there are hyperlocal activists and volunteers, many of which are all here in this room tonight. And one person in particular who I want to welcome and introduce to you is a neighbor and friend of mine, Ilhan Kagri. And Ilhan, in this effort, has been helping translate for incoming evacuees who are arriving at Dulles Airport. And as the child of immigrants herself, who has lived in Maryland for most of her life, she actually met her husband, an Afghan man, at the University of Maryland, and after graduation, they decided to move to Afghanistan. And then when the situation there changed, through a series of adventures and stops around the world, she returned here to Montgomery County and to Maryland, where she raised her family. And so, Ilhan, I'd like to welcome you to share your story and what you're currently doing to help those who need it.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you first to Councilmember Glass. Can everybody hear me okay? Thank you to the other council members who are here, and to our state senators and our state delegates, and to the organizations that are helping the effort. I'm going to talk about 3 different issues tonight. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my life. I was at the University of Maryland. I met my husband. He was Afghan. I mean, we weren't married, but he said, I'm going to go back to Afghanistan because Afghans are very nationalistic. Not going to stay in America. We can't get married because you would have to move to Afghanistan to be Afghan. And I said, no, I can be Afghan. I can move to Afghanistan, be Afghan. So with that promise, I married him, and off to Afghanistan we went. I learned to speak Farsi, Dari, the Persian, the dialect that they speak in Afghanistan. I got a job. I rode my bicycle to work, put my kids in school. I was very happy in Afghanistan. The Afghans were anybody who knows Afghans know that they're very generous, very kind, warm-hearted people. I was very happy. And then the Soviets decided to cross the border. And that's when things started to devolve very quickly. We stayed in Afghanistan for another few years. We thought this couldn't last. Obviously, the Soviets wouldn't be able to stay. War broke out. Actually, as Evan mentioned, I was at Dulles Airport. I worked there translating for the evacuees that are coming in. And one of the translators there, her father and her uncle decided that they were going to fight the Soviets. So they took their families from Kabul to a province, Kunar province, where they would leave their house every day and move into caves because the Soviets would bomb their homes, and then come back at night and sleep in their houses, and they weren't allowed to turn on lights. So Afghans started fighting for their freedom from the Soviets, from these communists that came in. And the communists were really, they were not nice people. I lived there at the time. They did not come in and say, we're going to bring in socialism. They were not interested in socialism. They were not interested in helping the Afghans at all. They could have done a lot of things for Afghanistan, and they didn't. So that's Afghanistan. As Evan said, we ended up having to leave. It was a reign of terror. Everybody was being arrested. Everybody was being killed. There was an issue that I might be arrested and, executed for being an American spy. It didn't matter to the Soviets whether it was true or not, because they would have used me on their TV channels in Czechoslovakia and Hungary and those countries to say, look, there are spies all over Afghanistan, to justify their war. So the second part of what I want to say is that Afghanistan, the Afghans did not create 9/11. All right? Everybody ties 9/11 to Afghanistan, and it breaks my heart because, first of all, the bombers were 19 of them, I think, were from Saudi Arabia, and the other one was an Iraqi or something. But the Afghans did not have anything to do with 9/11. The Afghans were not interested in invading America or fighting against Western powers or this kind of stuff. The Afghans had nothing to do with that. As a matter of fact, it was an ally of the United States, Osama bin Laden, who was actually allied with the United States when the United States, decided to fight against Soviet occupation of Afghanistan. And he decided that Afghanistan was remote enough that he could move his forces into Afghanistan and then switch his fight from fighting against the Soviets to fighting, Western hegemony and, whatever nonsense went through his head. So that's the sad part, is that I always feel like I need to decouple Afghanistan from 9/11. I want to tell you a little bit about what is going on at Dulles Airport. So I have been there from the very beginning, when the evacuees first started arriving. And we saw wonderful acts, and we saw some really, we were not prepared. As a government, we were not prepared to, get our act together for the thousands of people that would be arriving by plane. So what Customs and Border Patrol did in the first couple of days is, as soon as the plane landed, they said, well, we need to vet these people. We need to look at their manifests. So they would keep the plane on the tarmac locked for up to 11 hours with no food, while you had women, children, pregnant women, old people, babies, no food. When they came out of there, when they unlocked the doors, then there was another couple of hours where Border Patrol processed them, and then they would come upstairs. When they got out of the airplane, then of course the Red Cross would run with juice boxes and little cereal boxes, whatever they could do to try to get some triage into these people. As soon as the Border Patrol is finished with the groups of people, they come into a holding area in the airport where everyone is given a COVID test. And then they are handed over to State Department employees who process them, check their paperwork. Or many of them don't have paperwork, but as much as they can. And then they're taken by bus to the Dulles Expo Center, that is now a huge place that is set up with 3 areas with cots in them for single men, single women, and families. And this is about the first time that these people can lie down and sleep in 3 days, 4 days. They can also take showers there, they're fed there, and within about a day, they're moved to 3 different forts where their visa processing is done, and then they're sent off to the cities that have been picked to welcome them. The Afghans themselves that are arriving, I mean, it's so sad, because the first couple of days, well, first of all, the Border Patrol issue has been resolved. People asked Jen Psaki about it, and they immediately said, "This is not." I was worried we were going to have a death on our hands. I mean, 11 hours locked up in a plane is quite remarkable. So what Border Patrol does now is it takes all the people off the plane into a holding area. At least there's food and not food, but something to eat, and Red Cross provides juice boxes, whatever. And then that's when they come up to where they can be processed for their COVID vaccine and get sent on to the Dulles Expo Center. When we saw them, there were bruises. People had huge bruises on their arms. And I would say, where are you getting these bruises from? And they would say, well, the Taliban, both for crowd control and also because they were mad that people were leaving, would use their rifle butts on everybody. So just their rifle butts on everybody, and you would see men, women with bruises all over them. And we actually saw pictures of women who didn't make it through, and because they would send the pictures to their relatives, and they would have bruises all over their bodies, and they just couldn't make it through the gauntlet. We would have a man, I personally saw a man with a 2.5-year-old child and a 2-month-old infant, and his wife didn't make it. And he could not go back because he would be killed. So there's no point in a dead husband, in Afghanistan. So he had to come forward. We had to think about formula and baby bottles, and it was funny because Department of Health in Virginia said, we can't be responsible to give these guys baby bottles and formulas because they might not know how to use it. You know, there's a liability issue. And I'm like, well, we have a 2-month-old infant. We need baby bottles. They said, well, we can't do this because of the liability. Well, Travelers Aid went and out of this one woman from her own money, she went and she bought baby bottles and formula and brought them. Another woman from Travelers Aid, she called up her husband and sent him to Costco and said, you know, we need these things at the airport. And they brought them to the airport. So wonderful, wonderful, helpful people. One night, Red Cross had run out of supplies completely, and I put out a call to my neighborhood here in Silver Spring, and within hours, my car was loaded up with all kinds of supplies, and I was able to go to the airport with, you know, a lot of supplies that evening. So people are wonderful when, you know, when you ask for help, and not even when you ask, just wonderful, wonderful people. People arrive and they would say, is there any clothes? Because we just have this one thing. We ran with just the clothes on our backs. Is there anything to eat? We haven't eaten for 3 days. Not 3 days, but the plane would feed them. We haven't eaten for, you know, 20 hours or whatever it was by the time we got there, by the time they got to us. There was a woman, unfortunately, she was 4 months pregnant. She miscarried at the airport. There are other women who had just had babies, and they were having difficulties. There were elderly people that we had to have taken to the hospital because they didn't, you know, it was just too much of an ordeal. There were soldiers last night, a whole bunch of soldiers came through, I mean, with their uniform and alone, no family, no nothing. And they said that we were running. Taliban looked like they were going to come and kill all of us from this one area. They were all KP people, I think. Senator Smith, you might know about this one group of people. They were working for Americans. They were their K9 people, I think the group was. And the United States was able to just round them all up and get them out of Afghanistan because they were definitely going to be killed. People know that they're going to be killed. So it is a matter of life and death. These people are coming with nothing, with literally nothing, just the clothes on their backs. They do need help. They're good people. I mean, we were able to talk to them. One of the comments, I'm going a little bit over, I'm sorry, Evan. One of the comments that somebody made is, it's like Ellis Island. You know, somebody spoke about Ellis Island today, Councilmember Albornoz. It is like Ellis Island at Dulles Airport. I thought of that because we're trying to create people's names. Like some people, by the time they come up from Border Patrol, they have strange names. And we say, is this your name? Because you know, it looks funny. I said, no, that's not my name. So he's, okay. So we would cross out the name and write their correct name on there, trying to make sure that they have the correct names before they go to get their visas and things. So I just want to say that I'm really, really appreciative of all the work that everybody's doing. I'm appreciative to this county and to this state. I'm appreciative to this country. I raised Afghan children because, you know, my husband was Afghan, and they're entrepreneurs in this county. They do philanthropy in this county, and they love this county. So immigrants, we get the job done, which is a line from Hamilton. And I'm very proud to be an immigrant. I'm proud to be an immigrant and Montgomery Countyan and a Marylander, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ilhan, for sharing your personal accounts and stories. Some of it very disturbing, and I appreciate the candor and compassion in which you do that work. I also know that she's very persuasive on the neighborhood listserv. And so kudos to the neighborhood that will go unmentioned that fulfilled your car's needs to go to the airport within an hour. So thank you very much, Ilhan. There are some individuals I'd like to also recognize who've joined us tonight. Excellent. I do not see your mask over here. Some individuals I'd like to recognize. I know Maryland Delegate Brooke Learman has joined us all the way from Baltimore, which as we know, is the federally designated area in Maryland. And I've been informed that of all the immigrants that are coming to Maryland, about 50% are being sent to Baltimore. And so Delegate Lehrman, not only in Annapolis, is making sure that the state does everything possible, but from her perch in Baltimore City as well. So thank you, Delegate Lehrman, for being here this evening. I also want to thank another city council member, Lorianne Sales from the Gaithersburg City Council. Councilmember Sales, thank you very much for coming down from Gaithersburg. And one final mention I want to highlight for everybody. I want to thank the team in the back who are helping live stream this. Buzz 365 Media. Not only are they local here in Montgomery County, but they are an immigrant, minority, female-owned business, and if you are looking to do some live streaming or other telecommunication work, I really encourage you to shop local and check out Buzz 365 Media. So thank you both for being here too. There are two more people I would like to introduce you to for this evening, so we're almost done. And the next person who I want to introduce you to is the executive director of a Wheaton-based organization right here called I Support the Girls. Dana Marlowe is a friend and a human rights activist who does so many different things in our community. She'll tell you more about what I Support the Girls does. I know they have a table outside, but they are working to support women all around the world who need female supplies. And so Dana, come on up and tell everybody what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Glass, for convening this very important rally. As we've heard the stories tonight, under imminent threat of violence and bombings and other unknowns, Afghan families pushed through to get onto evacuation planes. With the situation changing minute to minute, they weren't able to bring much with them, salvaging their lives, obviously, in favor of possessions. But in the midst of all the chaos, do you know what was not on any of their minds? Their period, bras, underwear. So I Support the Girls, a global NGO. As you heard, we're based right here in Montgomery County. Our disaster relief program was thinking about this. And with more than 80% of displaced Afghans being women and children, an estimated 14,400 Afghans currently in the US are already in need of basic essentials to do something really, really basic, like manage their periods, because this is about dignity, full stop. So for those doing the math, which is most likely not me, that equates to more than 170,000 pads needed every month. Every month. And I'm not about to start doing a whole biology lesson. You guys all get it. But when one's arriving in a foreign country where nothing looks or sounds the same, the last thing that she wants to do is try to go out and find maxi pads. Life is overwhelming enough without having to worry about one's menstrual cycle. We anticipate by the time all the families clear security screenings, there'll be more than 30,000 Afghan women and girls needing to manage their periods. I Support the Girls is working around the clock to get more than 67,000 essentials out already in the last 3 weeks to organizations nationwide, including Seattle, here in the DMV, Houston, Denver, Detroit, and right here with some of our partners who are already in this room and outside here in Montgomery County, and we will continue to support them for the long run. So periods don't stop for humanitarian crises, but too often sometimes support long-term for refugees does. So let's make sure that this doesn't happen. If you know of anybody who'd like to donate just a basic buy one, get one free of pads, or if you see underwear or bras on sale that are standard and basic and not flashy, come chat with us. We have a booth outside, and I'm grateful for my colleague Christy here helping support, share about what we do. Because sometimes the small things really can be the big things. And so I want to thank everybody here who is working tirelessly to support so many folks around the clock, and all of the volunteers, because volunteers are truly the lifeblood of any nonprofit organization and faith-based organizations. So thank you all. Thank you, Councilmember Glass, for convening us all. Have a great evening.
Thank you very much, Dana, for sharing with everybody how your organization supports girls and women. And as we think about the future, we know that that is on the forefront of so many of our minds, but we also want to make sure that the women in Afghanistan, the young girls, those who identify as such also are taken care of when they come here. And in that spirit, I want to elevate a young woman's voice here in Montgomery County. So I would like to introduce Nora to come up. And Nora is a junior at Pate Branch High School. And she is the founder and executive director of an organization called Speaker, H-E-R, where she shares stories of domestic violence and survivorhood and enables individuals to take action against gender-based violence here in our community. And so, Nora, please come on up and share everybody.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Glass, for that warm welcome. And I'd like to explain a little bit more about my organization if I have a little bit of time. Speaker does share the story of domestic violence survivors. Along with that, we elevate voices by hosting things like drives, rallies, protests, seminars, and webinars. So if you're interested in participating, I also have a booth outside. Stop by and I'll give you a business card, or you can take down my contact information. Thank you. Policies and practices aimed at securing external borders and containing refugees may result in asylum seekers' insecure life when crossing the border and waiting for the outcome of status determination processes. With the Afghan refugee crisis, it is so important to understand and break down the structures in our systems that make refugees, particularly those that are women and who identify as women, susceptible to domestic and gender-based violence while seeking asylum. In the context of migration, institutions, laws, policies, and practices can cause violence or fail to prevent against it. The importance of youth involvement in pushing social change cannot be underestimated. Whether that means advocating for the rights of women and girls, showing up for our refugee communities, or simply giving our opinions on systems that will affect us in the future, we deserve to be heard. And as a result, we are able to notice progress in our society. It is up to us to welcome our Afghan brothers and sisters with open arms, open minds, and even more open hearts. As youth, as people of color, as minorities, as groups that are often left out of the larger picture and even larger conversation, it is detrimental that we take up these spaces. It is detrimental that we use our voices and refuse to shy away from policies that directly impact us. Only through raising our voices will we be able to demonstrate that decisions about our future must be made with us present and with our opinions and experiences in mind. Really quickly, let me address the elephant in the room. It's me. There's this really common misconception that visibly Muslim hijabi women are often oppressed, secluded, subjugated, and in need of some form of rescue. You've heard it all. Surprise, it's not true. I often face these assumptions when I walk into spaces like this. I know that my fellow marginalized counterparts are out there and know how much courage it takes to take up spaces and be unapologetic while you're at it. Society forces us into a box full of racial and ethnic stereotyping, homophobia, and other presumptions about our character without taking the time to listen to our voices. Minority youth activism is so crucial because we help policymakers develop and implement initiatives and policies that improve our society without leaving anyone behind, without leaving us behind. To the youth, to my brothers, sisters, and friends in humanity, we are the future. And if you're sitting at home listening or in the audience, I want to leave you with this final thought. If the world refuses to make room for you at the table of change, bring your own chair and sit at the head. Thank you.
Well, if Nora does not get you excited about the future here in Montgomery County and elsewhere, I don't know what will. Nora, thank you so much, and please send me a postcard from whichever Ivy League school you do attend next year. But, you know, I really want to thank every speaker who joined us this evening, whether they were from government and sharing with you our shared commitment to making sure that every person here, whether you are already living here or you are soon to be living here, have the resources you need, or whether you're from the nonprofit sector, sharing with us the work that you're doing day in, day out, and asking for support. That's why I convened this conversation tonight. And that is why I am here and my entire team is here, dedicated to making sure that everybody has an opportunity to succeed here in Montgomery County. And I just want to recognize my hardworking staff who've been doing this work day in and day out on top of planning this event. And from Valeria Carranza to Bianca Laura, David Lorenzo Botello, Noah Karn, and Nicole Vigil, please give them all a round of applause. We are a phone call, an email, a tweet, a DM, or a text away from any help and support that you need, so please don't hesitate to reach out. And while we're here this evening, the work we know does not stop here. This is just the beginning. If you want to get involved, you now have a guideway to get involved, whether it's one of the 18 organizations that sponsored tonight's event, whether it's an organization that spoke or has a table outside. I hope you signed up when you entered, because we will be emailing this information out to you as well. And if you want to review this also, it's on Facebook, so you can watch all 75 minutes, 80 minutes of it to catch up on what you might have missed. But I want to end this evening with the words of 13th century Persian poet Rumi. And he's often referred to as a mystic and a saint, a Sufi and a scholar. And he was born 814 years ago in what is modern-day Afghanistan. And Rumi wrote, "In this earth, in this soil, in this pure, fertile field, let us not plant any seeds other than the seeds of compassion and love." And listening to the words of Rumi, I know all of us in this room are going to open our arms and our hearts, and we are going to continue planting the seeds of love and compassion, because that's what we're all here for. That is how we operate here in Montgomery County. That is how we live in the state of America, in the state of Maryland, in the United States. And I know that we're going to continue this conversation moving forward. And so I just really want to thank all of you for caring, for being compassionate, for being here tonight, and let's continue this conversation. So thank you all, and have a good evening.